Let's go live. Check this is on. Yep, I think we're live. Oops, why is it not showing up? There it is. All right, we're live. All right, so welcome everybody to the weekly live stream where I answer all the questions that you guys send me. Thank you guys for tuning in. Just a reminder, as always, if you have any questions that you want to submit to these live streams, make sure you send them through the Google form linked in the video below, the description of the video below. And of course, you can always comment on the YouTube videos and then leave any questions that you have in the live chat if you have them as well. So today I actually have to leave a little early. I have a meeting right after at the end of the 30 minutes mark, so I probably will leave probably at like 8:58 or something like that to make it in time. But we have a handful of questions that I'm going to go through. I don't remember where these were from this time. But again, if you have questions, please leave them in the live chat. And if you're in the video right now or the live stream right now, be sure to give this video a like because the YouTube people like that. Okay, so let's start with the first question. This is from Lisa in New York. It's actually a personal message. And the message is, or the question is, when are you moving to New York? That's a interesting question. So I don't know if I will move to New York, but we'll see what happens in the future. New York, for those of you guys who don't know, is one of the cities that I am very interested in moving to, which also includes Boston and LA as well. So we'll see what happens. My lease ends in 10 months, so I'll reevaluate where I want to move down the road. So we have a question from the live chat from Aksa. How long does it take to get a response from the Hopkins for MPH admissions? You know, when I applied, Hopkins was the last program that I heard from out of all the other programs. I think the turnaround time was maybe like 1 or 2 months for the other programs, but Hopkins took like an additional 1 to 2 months afterwards. I'm assuming it kind of depends because it's rolling admissions. So it depends on when you submitted it. But anecdotally speaking, everyone that applied to public health programs, Hopkins was always the latest to respond. And again, on average, it took about 1 to 2 months after the other programs. So hopefully that helps. All right, we're going to move on to other questions. Let's see. This one is about certifications in pharmacy. And they says, as for questions, would you recommend someone who's just finished their P1 year to get a PMP certification? How can I get to learning to be familiar with vendors like Omnicell, Epic, and etc.? So whenever people ask questions about, what recommendations I have for certifications or masters or what should I do, I think it always comes down to what is your end goal in the future. So a PMP certification, for those of you who don't know, is a project management certification, and it's an excellent certification. I don't have it myself, so I can't comment on how difficult it is or some of the merits of it necessarily, but a lot of my colleagues have them. And within the field of informatics, if that's something you're interested in, a PMP certification can be very useful. I wouldn't say it's necessary, but it depends on your role. If your role is very heavy in project management, then it's something that you can consider investing in. But for someone who's finishing their P1 year without knowing anything else, like maybe you're looking for project management positions, in that case, I would probably recommend it. But if you're not, and you're just finishing your P1 year, I think that there are a lot more things you can invest your time in the beginning of your pharmacy career that's not that specialized. Maybe more development of your clinical skills or communication skills or exploration of other areas of pharmacy before exploring something like a PMP. In terms of the other question about how to get familiar with vendors like Omnicell, Epic, etc., I think the easiest way to do that, because it's very difficult otherwise, is to work in some setting, whether it's your IPPEs or APPEs down the road, or interning or volunteering. Without access to like a work environment, I think it's very difficult to get exposure to those different vendors. There's probably like demo systems that you can go to those websites and see what they're like, but I don't think that's always representative of the real world. So if you want something like real world, which I think is way better, highly encourage you to explore, volunteering, internships, IPPEs and APPEs of that sort. Question is also from Oxa. Can I reach you via email if I have some questions regarding online MPH from Hopkins? If so, would you share your email address? Yeah, certainly can. My email address is actually on my YouTube channel, but I would probably suggest, if you do have any questions, to use the Google form that is linked, as my email fills up pretty bad. And I don't really, to be honest, do a good job of checking it because it gets a little overwhelming. Let me see if I can send you a copy of this right here. Send this link. Here's a link to the Google form. Otherwise, my email is listed in the YouTube channel. But again, my inbox is pretty bad, and I'm not doing a really good job of going through the emails because I get too many emails. But but feel free to reach out. All right, let's move on to the next question here. How can I prepare for the Sphinx Test Epic test? So this question is related to Epic, which is a EHR vendor, and the Sphinx test is one of those tests of logic and reasoning, and they typically require anyone that's about to work in an Epic system, especially when you're applying to Epic jobs, to take this Sphinx test. There's not a good way to prepare that I saw. A lot of it is like reasoning and logic. So it's your ability to think, I would say almost like a computer. And I remember like getting this question a lot in the past, and I always thought that having some exposure to computer programming helps you through the thought process of that, or probably any type of logic and reasoning type exams and preparations. But I have not personally taken that exam. It's a very important exam because if you fail it, that exam carries through all of the jobs you apply for with Epic. They can always reference that test. So don't bomb it. Don't not prepare for it. Make sure you do a good job of like preparing for it. But I don't really have any other tips on what to do for that. Hey, Paul's in the channel. What's up, Paul? Did you move again? Yes, I did. I moved February 1st. So what is that? like about a month and a half ago. The pandemic rent was cheap, so I moved to a nicer part of DC that got hit by the cheaper pandemic rent. So, but I'm still in DC. Okay. Shout out to Paul anyways. If you guys, I'm sure many of you guys already know who Paul is, but you guys should check out Paul's channel. Let's see here. Another question is, my name is Eve. I'm not going to say any last names. My name is Eve, and I'm a P1 student at Nova. Came across your video on YouTube about day in the life of an informatics pharmacist. I noticed that you and your colleagues all did a PGY1 and a PGY2 in pharmacy informatics. My program offers a master's in biomedical informatics while pursuing your PharmD. I was wondering if that would be something I should do to get early exposure to the field, or if it would be best to wait till I do a PGY2. That's a great question. It's a very common question. I don't think there's any right answer here, but I can share a couple of thoughts. The first thought is, if you're a P1, you probably don't have a lot of exposure to the practice of pharmacy in general, and you probably aren't familiar with what pharmacy informatics even entails. Because of that, I would be a little hesitant in pursuing a master's in biomedical informatics right off the bat. Though I know a lot of programs encourage you to sign up sooner rather than later. But if you are questioning this to begin with, I would encourage you to explore what pharmacy informatics entails first before looking more into this master's. And the two resources I always recommend right now is a free course that we have on the Pharmacy Informatics Academy. You can go to the website and enroll in the course for free. It's about 2 hours. It kind of talks about what pharmacy informatics entails. And the second thing is going to check out Tony Dow's Pharmacy ITME podcast, which kind of where he interviews a lot of different informatics people to give you an idea of what the field is about. That program in itself is not pharmacy informatics. Masters in Biomedical Informatics is not pharmacy informatics. It's a broader category of informatics. And I highly encourage anyone that's interested in informatics to learn more about biomedical informatics. It's fantastic and excellent if you are interested in pharmacy informatics. So that's the first thing. The second thing is like tuition. I don't know if it's any additional credits to you or any additional costs. If not, it could be worthwhile in terms of ROI. But me personally, I'm a huge fan of diversity in education. I think there are other institutions that are too, where learning from different organizations is encouraged rather than getting all your education in one place. So for my personal preference, I always suggest wherever you do your pharmacy school, do your master's training elsewhere because you learn so much more from other people. And you know what? I'll end that thought. And then the other comment I'll make is that whenever anyone asks about masters in any industry, I always say, wait a few years after you've worked. Most people would probably agree that doing a master's right out of whatever training curriculum you're in, be it a bachelor's, a master's, or a doctorate, doing a master's right away isn't as beneficial as if you've worked for a few years and then go back for your master's. So I think the majority of those comments would reflect not pursuing a master's as a P1, but I'm sure other people would say otherwise. That's just my thoughts, though. Mr. Dennis is in chat. Dennis says, who is your favorite roommate? Obviously not Dennis. My favorite roommate is no roommate. I don't like roommates. It's too much work. That's the answer there. Paul says, haven't been posting. Yeah, Paul, what's going on with Paul? Yeah, for those people who don't know who Paul is like the OG YouTube pharmacist. You guys should check out his channel. He is like the pharmacist that inspired so many other pharmacists to start their YouTubes, including myself. But it seems like he hasn't been posting. You guys should go check out his archive of videos, though. It's pretty chill. Let's see. AXA says, is it easy to convert online part-time MPH Hopkins into full-time on-site MPH, or is it too overwhelming? You can say it in two ways. Is it easy to convert? Technically, yes. You can turn full-time anytime you want. It is one of the most flexible programs I've ever been a part of. However, full-time curriculum is extremely intense. I don't know many people who converted from part-time to full-time unless they had some significant life event where they either lost their job, was furloughed, has a lot of time on their hand, because you literally go from like 3 to 9 credits in a part-time program. I think it's actually like up to like 11 credits, but typically most of my colleagues took between 3 to 9 credits per term to up to 20 something credits. Like you're going to be suffering if you don't have extra time and you convert to a full-time student. It is very hard. And I think you're fine if you're starting Hopkins, or if you've started already. I don't know if you've started already, but the Hopkins courses are extremely intense. Some of them are a lot of work, and it's just very hard to manage at once. So I would be hesitant if you're converting from part-time to full-time. If you start full-time, it's probably better because you're used to the workload. Ray says, what do you think about pharmacologist? Does it have potential? I just know your channel, so I haven't had a chance to watch many clips yet. You know, I don't even know. This sounds pretty dumb. What kind of roles does a pharmacologist play? Um, so it says, I'm just Googling here. Pharmacologists are knowledgeable professionals who focus their work into researching and understanding the chemical processes that take place between living organisms and different substances and compounds. The main purpose of a pharmacologist is to create, develop, and test new medications. I don't know. There could be. It sounds like the area of like drug development, lab work. I would probably try looking up the BLS to see if they have anything on that pharmacologist. Let me see. They probably fit under medical scientists. Yeah, this is interesting. Is it on demand? Job outlook. So if we were to associate pharmacologists with medical scientists, it's definitely not like a one-to-one here. But they say the number of jobs in 2019 is 138,000. The next 10 years projected to grow at 6%. I don't know too much about the field. I know more so about pharmacists. If you're talking about a pharmacist, I would probably not encourage entering pharmacy school right now in terms of overall return on investment. There's a huge job market saturation right now, and it's not really a good time to go in my opinion, if you're looking at the grand scheme of things, unless you're like family line of all pharmacists and it's like all you've ever wanted to do. Hope that answers your question. I don't really know too much about pharmacologists. All right, let's move on to another question here. Let's see. So this one is, you probably don't remember me, but I came up to you at mid-year and said I recognized you from your videos. I actually interviewed at PPS with about 10 programs at mid-year. However, unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, I was unable to apply this year. I liked most of the programs I interviewed with, so I'm hoping to apply next year. Now that I have about a year to get more experience before applying, how can I become a strong applicant for a PGY2 since I'm not going straight into a PGY2? That's a good question. I don't know if I've thought about that as of late. I think this is probably going to be kind of generic advice. I would say the typical thing is like any type of gap, you would want to make sure there's some type of experience in there, because the assumption would be that you're working, or some type of didactic training improvements, like you're also doing a master's, you're doing a certificate, you're doing some type of didactic training to improve yourself during that year. That's another thing. And then since you did finish a PGY1, right? Yeah, PGY1. I will also look into board certification. And anything that can make you more competitive in general is just anything that is relevant to pharmacy that you can further develop on. So any type of certifications, training, and work experience. I'm not sure if, like you didn't mention in your question, if you're looking specifically for PGY2 in informatics. There's probably a lot of things that you can do depending on what type of PGY2 you're actually going to apply into. If it's like PGY2 in informatics, I'd probably say, you should probably do more projects with wherever you end up working or volunteering in, getting involved with different organizations. All very different versus like, let's say you're applying to like a PGY2 in infectious disease. In that case, I might suggest like looking into research, practicing or volunteering with ID associations, things like that. So a little different depending on that, but it's kind of generic advice. Just anything that you can do to improve yourself in terms of work experience, didactic training, anything that pertains to the PGY2 that you want to apply into. Let's see. Ray says, thank you. AXA says, thanks, very helpful. You guys are all very welcome. CA8620 says, are you interested to transport cocaine from Colombia to Mexico? That sounds actually quite adventurous, and I would say I've been trying to be more adventurous lately, but I'm gonna have to pass on that. That's probably illegal, I believe. So probably a hard pass on that one. But thanks for the offer. Let's see here. I got just a couple more minutes left because I'm gonna have a meeting soon. Let's move on to another question. Let's see. So this one is what was it? Brian, I've been watching your videos regarding pharmacy informatics, and I'm actually in the process of applying for a master's in health informatics. I'm a UIC PharmD student. I think UIC is like Chicago, with a GPA of 3.0. So I'm worried about not getting a residency after graduation. I just finished my second year of pharmacy school. I'm worried because it seems like all the informatics pharmacists that have been interviewed did residencies. So I was wondering, do you believe getting this master's in health informatics is a good option for me? So there's a lot of points to be made in this question. I think the first thing is, you say GPA of 3.0, so I'm worried about not getting a residency after graduation. So residency applications are not solely based on GPA. There is like a checklist of things that they look at. And then depending on how you score on all of those things, that's how you typically get your invite. GPA is just one of many. So if you have a GPA of 3, which many people actually do have GPAs of 3, doesn't mean you wouldn't get one. You can be stronger in your letter of intent, your letter of recommendation, your extracurricular activities, your leadership experience, your work experience. So there are other things that play into whether or not you get selected. So if you're that worried about your GPA, be sure to beef up your other areas that you can work on. So that's the first comment. Let's see, what else did you say? Worried about, it seems like. So you say it seems like all the informatics pharmacists that have been interviewed did residencies. So there's a bit of bias here. I'm assuming you're talking about my videos. And I've wanted to talk about this in the past, but I would have to say that a lot of my videos are biased in the sense that many of those interviewed did do residencies. It just happens to be people that I know. But I can tell you that the vast majority of informatics pharmacists did not do residencies. The first informatics residency, or PGY2, was in 2006 or 2008, 2006 or 2008 by OHSU. And that's just one. And that's in 2006, not that long ago, or maybe a long time ago. But pharmacy informatics is still quite small in general, I would say, and especially the residency pathway. So the vast majority of informatics pharmacists do not have residencies. It's just a bias of my videos. So I would not be worried because of that. And then your actual question is, do you believe getting a master's in health informatics is a good option? I feel like this question is so common. Having a degree versus not having one overall probably makes you more competitive versus someone who doesn't, right? And you are looks like second year in pharmacy school. I think the thing before pursuing something is you should always figure out if it's actually something you want to do. Many students that go into pharmacy school don't even know where they want to specialize in, if they even do, until they do rotations in their 4th year. I'm always hesitant to say just go and do it until you know what it is. So I'm not going to give you a yes or no answer. I would encourage you to explore what pharmacy informatics is first before investing time into it, because there's time, there's money, there's a lot of other factors that go into it. But I mentioned it earlier in the video. 2 things I always recommend: go check out the free course on Pharmacy Informatics Academy. It's a 2-hour free course. You can sign up. That teaches you a little bit more about what pharmacy informatics is. It's very introductory. And the second thing is go check out Tony's Pharmacy ITME podcast, where he talks about, or where he interviews a lot of different informatics pharmacists. So go check that out first, and then come back and reevaluate if informatics is truly what you're interested in. All right, got just like 3 more minutes here. Got a couple more chats. It says, Absorber says, how do you find interesting, engaging content to post for LinkedIn or YouTube? Yeah, you know, that's a good question. I think it's, what's the easiest way to answer? So information and knowledge is king, in my opinion. And being able to quickly source credible information is important, especially in the ever-changing environment we're in now. The main sources I get interesting to me, might not be interesting to others, interesting content right now is 2 sources. One, the ASHP Daily Briefing, which is like a summary of the most quote-unquote important pharmacy news on a daily basis, Monday to Friday. And they just summarize everything quickly for you in very short snippets, and if you want to read more, you can dive into it. That's the first thing. So it keeps me on top of pharmacy practice knowledge. The second source is AMIA. They have like a daily download, and then they cover informatics, public policy, informatics and public policy, and a lot of technology. So I read that, and I actually find that the most interesting. They go over like what's big tech doing, what's the government doing, where's clinical informatics world going. Like, they talk about the most interesting things if you're interested in pharmacy informatics or informatics, public health or public policy. I always look at those 2 places, and usually they give me good ideas of where to go next. Little secret there. Let's see. Another question is, if you could choose between pharmacy and medical school, which one would you choose? Knowing what I would now, I would probably choose neither. Medical school, well, yeah, there's like so many nuances to it. If I could see blood, I would go to medical school. A big reason why I went to pharmacy school is because I just pass out at the sight of blood. I can't see blood. I love differential diagnosis. I think it's so fascinating, and I would have went to medical school in a heartbeat. But knowing what I know now and how much effort and work would go into medical school, I don't think that's the life for me. It comes a point where you have to value your life over work. Your life is not 24/7 work. And knowing that, I would probably not choose medicine, even though I love it. I would probably look at something else. Those are not good choices. I probably wouldn't choose healthcare. I'd be somewhere in technology, computer engineering. Absorber says, are there career options for pharmacy informatics for pharmacy technicians? Yes, there is. There's a lot of pharmacy technicians in pharmacy informatics. It's all over the place. There's a lot of positions for pharmacy technicians in there. Similar stuff that pharmacists do, probably just like with less purview over some of the clinical aspects, and then you usually get your work checked by a pharmacist. Hey, Badar's in the house. Mushu's. Mushu says, hello, Light. Why have pharmacists not been granted the ability to prescribe medicine when they are clearly more informed on the medications than the doctors? Yeah, that's a question that can take a while to answer. I don't even know where to start with that, and this is probably time and key for me to start heading out because my next meeting is about to start. There's a lot of policy and politics that's involved with that, but in some cases you can argue depends where you go. Pharmacists in the VA can actually prescribe, and then there are many pharmacists that have collaborative practice agreements with physicians where they can also prescribe too. So it's not like it doesn't cover everything, but Absorber says, thanks, Brian, and then Mushu says, don't be using my government name. All right, man. All right, so thank you guys all for tuning in. I need to head out. I have a meeting that's starting in like 1 minute. Always appreciate you guys tuning in, asking questions, and engaging with me. If you guys ever have any tips on how to engage more, or like what you would like to see more, definitely let me know, because I'm trying to do this so I can engage with my audience more. So anyways, thank you guys for tuning in. I will see you guys next week. Bye.